Welcome to another happy half hour at the pub quiz from hell. I'm mine host, of course, and here's your round. A small, dry, white one. A large one. Is this your Carter? And, of course, I'll be having my usual. Welcome to the Four Bells, gentlemen. John goes. Jimmy goes. Phil goes. And Alan goes. Oh, yes. Now, what would you do, or what should you do, if a bird knocks over your dominoes?
This actually happened.
Oh, you know this?
Yeah.
Tell.
Well, a bird flew in and knocked over some dominoes. It was, I think it was in Holland, and there were about 20,000 of them.
Yeah, that is fantastic. There were 23,000 that it was in Holland. Absolutely right. There's one little house sparrow flew into the Frisian Conference Centre
Like
in Leeuwarden, and it would have been more, because they were going for a world record. It was Domino Day 2005, and they were going for 5 million, but he knocked over only 23,000 because they'd left gaps.
You can't imagine that the Dutch would have been that bothered, though. Oh, show a bird that's knocked over a domino. Never mind. Let us go to the Anne Frank Museum.
Well, in fact, what they did is they called for one Duke Faunabeheer, who came in with a net and tried to trap the bird because they were terrified. He was still in the building. It was going to knock over more. Bizarrely, Faunabeheer means animal manager in Dutch. Fauna is fauna and beheer means a manager. Anyway, and he tried and tried and tried, and then he shot it. And he was fined €200 for the crime of killing a member of an endangered species, the house sparrow.
I've had some bird problems recently. I have... Pigeons have suddenly decided to live on my balcony in great quantities. There were nests and feathers and shit everywhere. It was like Jackson Pollock had been doing it all. And I went to see somebody about it. They said, oh, you know what you need? You need a kestrel.
And also, at the time, John was hosting a massive domino party. So
It went horribly wrong, Philip, I can tell you.
I love the image of Session sat at home watching television, kestrel on the arm.
Fly, my pretty. You could pull it off, though, couldn't you?
A kestrel, I mean, I'm sure he'd love it, but... You're barred!
Well, amazingly, the Dutch animal rights people got very, very upset about the death of this one sparrow. And this year, they are actually opening a special house sparrow display, and the stuffed dead sparrow will star.
Is that up against the Anne Frank house?
It is.
Because I don't think it's as bad.
That's a more plausible image of the Nazis creeping into Anne Frank's house and she knocks the dominoes over and suddenly the... Up in the loft, what's happening?
It's a bit
Let's go to the loft, I hear a domino.
These Nazis. Funny accent.
I know. I've never met any, I only ever seen Hello, Hello, so not got a lot to base.
We can move on. Anyone fancy a game of arrows while we're in the pub? On the hockey, then, what begins with D and is something you always see the players doing in darts matches? Johnny.
Dangly wrist.
Dangly wrist?
The great darts player always, before they wobble their stomach, they do this with their wrist. I'm sorry, it's an unfortunate...
What kind of pubs have you been playing darts in?
Oh, hello.
Yes, they're very nice.
Oh, Jimmy, no, it's 2006.
What did,
We can't be doing hello ducky, can we?
Is there some word that they use that means throwing the darts? Or is it darting?
Well, what you've done is you've cleverly avoided our trap, which was drinking, because that's what they don't do.
No,
It's actually against the rules of competition darts to drink during a game of darts. When they first televised it, they would drink quite a lot while they were playing. Then the game fell into decline, and it was that fell whore comedy that was responsible. Darting.
You join us during the final stages of this truly titanic struggle between Di, Fat Belly Gut Bucket. And the English champion, Tommy Even Fatter Belly Belcher.
It's game on.
And it's a good start. Double vodka. Single pint. Another double vodka. That's a
100 milligrams.
100 milligrams.
This was such a problem, this sketch, apparently, for the public perception of darts, that it fell into decline and became regarded as a slobby game for drunkards.
You know, in Holland, they play it in schools.
Well, they have the great Raymond van Barneveld, who's won the darts many times. I remember the commentator saying, he's quite a man, he is. In his spare time, he studies the universe. Who's the famous darts commentator, do you remember?
Sid Waddell.
Sid Waddell.
So is it double first at history, something like that?
He certainly read history at Cambridge University and has said some famous and extraordinary things in his time.
There's only one word for that, magic darts.
That's the greatest comeback since Lazarus.
It said that Alexander the Great conquered the world at 33. Eric Bristow is only 32.
Absolutely. He actually was slightly more poetic. When Alexander of Macedon was 33, he cried salt tears that there were no more worlds to conquer. Eric Bristow's only 27. And then you have the rather odd one, he's as happy as a penguin in a microwave. There are other things you're not allowed to do with darts. You're not allowed to wear a hat. Unless you are... Yes.
A bishop.
You're in a righteous kind of area. It's a religious reason.
Sikh.
A Sikh is the right answer. Help yourself to a point.
But is
or
a
two.
Sikh a hat?
A Sikh isn't a hat.
know
A
you
Sikh
don't-
is a...
Where's the turban a hat?
I can see you've been trying to wear Sikhs, haven't you?
Read more about this phenomenon in the book The Man Who Turned an Eastern Religion into a Hat.
No, a turban isn't a hat officially, I suppose. Not really a hat. It's a head joy of one kind. Now, what do these people have in common? Oscar Wilde, Ernest Hemingway, Picasso, Van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec, Degas, Manet, Strindberg, Baudelaire, Rimbaud, Verlaine, Kylie Minogue. Go on with you.
Darts fans!
It's possible. A lot of these people collected in one place.
Was something to do with Paris? How's in Paris?
It's associated with Paris in a particular epoch. The whole bohemian world of Paris artists.
Yeah, I take your point, but the Minogue is throwing us a little.
Yeah. Nicole Kidman looked a bit like her in Moulin Rouge.
She was in Moulin Rouge,
Was
though,
she?
Kylie.
Oh, how
yeah, she
embarrassing.
played a sort of symbolic role.
She was the windmill.
No. What does Moulin Rouge mean?
Red
It
windmill.
means red windmill, Moulin Rouge. And she played something green. The Green Fairy. Does that help you? What is the Green Fairy?
Absinthe!
Absinthe! Take a point. Not as many as if you got it earlier. Yeah. La Fée Verte is the French nickname for absinthe. What do we know about absinthe?
It drives you completely crackers. And that's why most of the great French symbolist poets went barking on it.
Yes, and a lot of the artists, and that's a Toulouse-Lautrec with the green glass in the
Yes.
foreground
I
there.
had some in a bar in Manchester and they made it over a hot spoon.
Yes, they do it over a hot spoon with sugar, melting the sugar, didn't they?
And it was tranny night.
But do you know what makes it...
And I enjoyed it much more after the absinthe than I...
As, what was it Ernest Dowson said, absinthe makes the tart grow fonder.
It does make you go a little bit flighty and a bit giddy.
It does, and do you know what the ingredient is that makes it do that?
Heroin.
No, it's not heroin.
Is it mint? Probably mint is very fresh and it sort of clears the sinuses and you go f***ing mental.
It's a plant whose Latin name is Artemisia, but is better known by the good biblical name of wormwood. And the word vermouth is the same cognate, verm being as in vermicelli,
Well,
being a
obviously,
worm.
yes.
Worm. And so it was in the 18th century that a man called Dr. Ordinaire, rather bizarrely, first patented a drink using aniseed and this thing, and copper sulfate as a colour, which is not very good for you, to make it even greener. Yes. And he had a cousin who really made a fortune on it until it was banned by the French in 1915. I wonder if you can guess the cousin's name. It's a very famous name amongst drinks in France, because he then...
Oh, no.
Pernod is the right answer. But what happened is they banned it in 1915, and then in 1926, after applying vigorously, Monsieur Ricard and Monsieur Pernod and the other makers of what had been the dangerous absinthe said, can we make it this time without the wormwood and just make an aniseed spirituous liquor? And they said, oh, all right. And that is now the staple that we drink in Parisian cafes.
Pastis.
Pastis. So, yes, that's your absinthe. It was banned in Belgium first in 1905 and then in Switzerland in 1912. But when was it banned in Britain?
1897.
Yep.
I don't think has it ever been
You're
banned?
getting points all the way along the line, Mr. Davies. It's quite right. Never been banned
People
in
didn't
Britain.
really like it.
Always been legal. No, never caught on. Are you familiar with the phrase, the great binge?
My 40th birthday.
It's a term cultural and social historians give to the period 1870 to 1914. Absinthe was sweeping Europe. Your fizzy drink had cocaine in it. Your throat pastils had heroin in them. There's morphine available as a gel. All of them from the local corner shop.
Sorry, go back to the throat pastils.
Yes.
That sounds fantastic.
Yes.
Got a little bit of a tickle, have you?
Heroin.
Done.
Harrods. Let me tell you about Harrods. They had a kit which they described as a welcome present for friends at the front to be sent to soldiers in the trenches, containing cocaine, morphine, syringes and needles.
Of course, the famous thing about heroin is the fact it's a brand name, isn't it?
Well done. I was going to ask that very question. Do you know who held it?
It was the heroin company.
No, so it was Bayer, B-A-Y-E-R, who also patented aspirin. I mean, in 1898, there were 250,000 heroin addicts in the USA, which is twice as many per head of population as there are now. So, I mean, it really was the great binge. Animal tests had proven heroin to be 100% non-addictive. The Boston Medical and Surgical Journal wrote in 1900, it possesses many advantages over morphine, it's not hypnotic, and there's no danger of acquiring a habit. Absinthe, anyway, absinthe, painted by Picasso, Degas, Manet and Toulouse-Lautrec, copiously consumed by all the rest, except for Kylie Minogue, who, as you pointed out, played the character Absinthe or the Green Fairy in the film Moulin Rouge. Now, what's a vomit comet? Yay.
Is it a new alcoholic snooker player?
No, it isn't.
Or is it a branch of electrical retailers in Slough?
Good.
If you don't feel very well in space and you throw up out of the window.
You started so well, and then you suggested the idea of a window that you could open in a space capsule.
I'm assuming there'd be an airlock. Or maybe you just have your own helmet and then vomit out.
It's a plane that they train astronauts.
You're absolutely right, Phil.
Go up
Jupiter's
and
helping us out
They
with
float
some
about
points.
and they throw up and they bring them down again.
Exactly right.
Covered in their own business.
It's exactly right. Well done. It's a military spec 707, and it does parabola flights. It does about 30 or 40 in a
They
mission.
shot about 20 minutes of footage for Apollo 13 in it, but they could only do it in 60-second chunks because that's as much as you're allowed to be weightless before they have to bring you back down.
You're absolutely right. It's actually even less than 60 seconds. Yeah, it's about 40 seconds.
It must be padded.
Well, you don't need to because you don't really hit it with any force when you're weightless.
Well,
But
imagine when you stop being weightless.
It comes back slowly, I guess, because you're problem. You go
It's
from,
also covered in sick.
go from 0G.
Interesting point from a personal point of view. If you weight a lot, are you more weightless?
We have the interesting physical question of the difference between mass and weight. Weight is a phenomenon that doesn't exist except by virtue of gravity, because we are live in 1G.
Tell that to society,
Yeah.
Fry.
Fatness, on the other hand, is a completely different issue. It doesn't alter. I can do that. It doesn't alter whether you're weightless or not.
So if you went into space, in a spaceship, quite a large spaceship, and you had a mouse and an elephant,
They were both weigh the same because they were both
they
weigh
both
zero.
become weightless at the same time?
Yeah.
Or would the mouse lift off quick and then taunt the elephant?
Well, anyway, you're absolutely right about the vomit comet, and it was used to train astronauts in weightlessness. About a third of them would get incredibly sick, about a third moderately, and a third not at all. But supposedly it was the anxiety rather than the actual experience that made them sick. So, what do you know about the great stink? Johnny?
In 1858,
Yes.
Parliament in this country was trying to be held, and the smell of crap
Yep.
coming from the Thames was so appalling that they tried to get round it by hanging curtains dipped in lime.
That's right.
But it was still pretty terrible, as you can imagine. And so then they had to turn to the man whose descendants eventually invented Big Brother, Bazalgette.
The Great Stink was in 1858.
Yeah.
I'd love to have been in Parliament that day, wouldn't it be great? And I put it to the honourable member that he who smelt it dealt it.
I mean, of course, there was no sewage system in 1858 to speak of. They used the underground rivers, the fleets, and so on.
Yeah.
And the turds built up. There had been 3 huge cholera epidemics. 1% of all the population of London had been killed in cholera.
Is cholera a smelly thing?
No, but it goes where smell is, and that's the point. At the time, everybody believed it. Even the most senior doctors believed that disease was spread by smell.
I still think that.
Well, indeed, a lot of people do. Because so often, where there is something terrible like typhoid or cholera, there is also an awful smell. Because let's face it, these are fecally born diseases, and it's when shit gets into water and people drink the water that they get typhoid or cholera. People smell it. And of course, they had no microscopic evidence of the fact that there were parasites or bacilli or germs of any kind. So they naturally thought, this is causing a terrible smell. So to get rid of the smell, we will have sewers that take everything away underground, which is the greatest sewage system that had ever been built in London. Miles, thousands of miles of drains. The embankment was built there in front of us and next to this studio. Putney Bridge, many other bridges, huge pumping stations, vast areas of London. It was the biggest civil engineering job ever undertaken by this man, Joseph Bazalgette, whose great-great-grandson, oddly enough, now runs Endemol and is busy pumping shit back into our homes. But that's another matter. So, anyway, we've had the Great Binge, the Great Stink. What's the Great Drink, specifically in Burnley, Lancashire?
Rohypnol and Coke?
Whoa! So that's Slough and Burnley off the list.
Is it Yorkshireman's blood? Whippet piss?
It is a really, really bizarre answer. If you don't know this, you'll be astonished. This place drinks more of this particular drink than anywhere else in the world, but it's not a British drink. It's because of the East Lancashire Regiment in the Second World War was stationed in a particular part of the world where they developed a taste for this drink and they brought it back home to Burnley. It's a liqueur.
Is it?
It's not even...
Is it Curacao?
It's not Curacao.
Cointreau.
It's not Cointreau.
Is it Baileys?
It's not... It's, no.
They're not Baileys.
I think that's Slappers in Chigwell, really. This is...
How very dare you?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're from Chigwell. I do apologise. No, the Burnley Miners Working Men's Club gets through a third of the number of bottles sold in the entire country, just the Working Men's Club.
Kahlua.
It's not Kahlua. It's rather more sophisticated.
Chartreuse.
That's the right area. It's
Strega.
No, Chartreuse is brewed by monks, and this is brewed by monks too.
Any offers, anyone?
Don't know.
Benedictine from the audience is the right answer. A Benedictine. There it is. Isn't that extraordinary? And it's genuinely true. Burnley drinks more than any other place in the world.
They did seem to be drinking pints with froth.
Yeah, it was a latte Benedictine. It was,
Oh, we've got a body shop in the parade now, you know. Oh, yeah.
I'll have a Benedictino.
Now, what did Dora do with invisible ink and binoculars?
Are we dealing with the Defence of the Realm Act?
You are. Dora, in this
Yes.
instance, is the Defence of the Realm Act.
Right. So-
And what did the Defence of the Realm Act do with invisible ink and binoculars?
Did it ban them?
It banned them. I think you share the points. Very good. Absolutely right.
The thing about banning invisible ink is difficult to follow through with that,
Put
isn't
your
it?
finger on a problem there. Absolutely. 1915, the year that the French banned absinthe, was the year of Dora. But what did it introduce, which is rather fitting to our theme here this evening?
Oh, the licensing laws.
The license, you're doing well. Points piling up there with you, Phil Jupiter's absolutely right. Introduced licensing hours. Why?
Shift workers.
Yes.
Yeah, to get more productivity out of the workers.
In the Second World War, they had to get Veronica Lake to get a haircut.
Yeah.
Because the ladies who had to work in the factories while the chaps were away getting blown to bits were mimicking her haircut and getting caught in the machinery.
Oh,
So she used to have her hair over one eye.
she did, that wonderful blonde wave that rippling.
She was very
right down.
fit.
She was well fit.
She thought it was down to the eye, but... Well, but anyway,
Jerry
all
Hall,
the girls thought, I'd like to be like Veronica Lake.
Yeah.
So they had their hair like that, and then they'd lean over and go...
You're in danger of that happening to yourself, Alan, I have to say.
It's one of the reasons why I don't work in munitions factories.
It's all beginning to make sense. Yes, they also brought in British Summertime with Dora.
They came up with summer. They're brilliant.
We came up with seven.
I thought we weren't doing that.
That was different. Bonfires,
Free camp.
fireworks, flagpoles, campanology, they were all banned.
Campanology? Campanology?
Bell ringing.
Oh, I thought it was that again.
No.
Hang on, there's no need to try and arouse us during this.
So that was Dora. It's an interesting example of how governments use emergency measures permanently to undermine civil liberties. Thank God that kind of thing doesn't happen here anymore. And now it must be time, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for our late night lock-in that we call general ignorance. So fingers on buzzers, please. What's a vomitorium for? Yes, Johnny.
It's in a theatre. There's shafts coming up onto the stage.
No, he's too good. He's too good. You're
Which-
quite right.
Is it
yeah.
not the room where they test Kingster's pasties? I can't believe I didn't get that right.
Oh,
Is it London's least successful tourist destination? It's just next to the planetarium.
vomitorium. Very good. No, it is indeed. The exits in certain theatres, Chichester Theatre,
Sheffield Crucible.
the Sheffield Crucible, and of course the Colosseum in Rome had the most famous.
Yeah.
But mistakenly, people think it's a room that Romans set aside for vomiting after eating too heavily, and that's erroneous. It's just not true. Aldous Huxley probably compounded the felony in 1923 when he wrote about them as having these rooms called vomitoria. The Oxford Dictionary is very harsh on him. Now, what's the single largest man-made structure on the face of the planet?
Blue whale.
It's usually a good one to get a... No, not a blue whale. Man-made structure.
Holland.
You know, I
about
mean, in
the
many ways,
really-
Holland is man-made, isn't it?
Well, a lot of it is,
The
the side bit.
polderlands and so on. It's not a single structure, though, is it?
What
Really?
about a really, really, really deep drill? You know, when they drill about 3 miles down.
Well, that would be big, but it's quite narrow, really. Yeah.
An extended Great Wall of China.
Oh, there you are. Great Wall of China.
Interesting fact about that.
Yes,
Longest wall in the world, not one cash point.
Is it in the Middle East?
No, amazingly, I'll tell you what it is. It's Staten Island.
I bet there's a Fathers for Justice bloke at the top, isn't there?
If there is, in common with much of our theme of this evening, he will be holding his nose.
Is it a landfill?
It's a landfill, absolutely right. It's a landfill on Staten Island called the Fresh Kills. That's a small part of it.
Ah.
It covers...
Do you know, it doesn't get the tourists it deserves.
It was closed in 2001. The residents were beginning not to enjoy it very much.
The residents?
Right. The residents of Staten Island, I should say, rather than the landfill.
They found it completely impossible to play dominoes there.
Too many birds. But in 2001, its peak was 25 metres higher than the top of the Statue of Liberty. It was reopened in order to deal with the debris of the Twin Towers and then closed again.
It's not really filling the land if it's piled on top of it, is it?
Well, no, at the moment they're in the business of making it a parkland and wildlife facility. It's going to be like that episode of The Simpsons where it all leaks and kind of bursts out. Remember, they're trying to hammer it down.
Don't they give off quite a lot of power, landfills? Because lots of methane gas comes up and they burn it and it works as a power source.
And there's much methane trapped in old ones that they're very worried about.
They sometimes have landfill explosions, don't they?
Which I think they should keep. They should turn it into land for ramblers. And then let them take their chances. It's sort of natural selection.
Anyway, what should you not drink if you're dehydrated? Jimmy Carr.
Jacob's crackers. You can blend them up with a little flower top. Refreshing.
What liquid?
Shouldn't you drink?
Seawater is the right answer, yes. Anything else?
You shouldn't drink seawater.
Yeah.
Booze. Mustn't drink booze.
Sorry.
No, we've got a rather cross expert, the dietitian here from St George's Hospital, London. Chief dietitian, Catherine Collins.
Can I
She
get that name
says-
again?
Yep, absolutely. Love to see you. What people need to remember is that fluid is a general item and doesn't refer solely to water. Tea, coffee, squash and milk for children are perfectly good fluid replacers. A lot of nonsense is spoken about water being the best way to hydrate.
Tea, coffee for children?
Yeah.
She's a dietitian, is she?
Tea, coffee, squash, and milk for children. Yeah. And yes, apparently a bit of beer's fine, and coffee would be fine. People think, oh, it must be water. I can't have coffee because it's a slight diuretic with caffeine in it. But you lose far less than you get from the actual liquid in the coffee. But what effect does alcohol have on your brain cells in your body?
Oh, makes me go mental.
What it certainly doesn't do, which you might have said, was destroy or kill them.
Right.
But it doesn't. There's no evidence at all. Studies of alcoholics and non-alcoholics show the same number of brain
Virtually
cells.
everything else does kill your brain cells, doesn't it? Soap operas. What are the beer goggles? What is the Latin term?
Beer goggles?
Yeah.
What are they?
When you've got the beer goggles on, it's when you really fancy someone who normally you wouldn't fancy.
Oh!
So you would refer to someone as a 7-pinter?
Stephen doesn't have beer goggles, he has Madeira Pince-Nez.
Imagine with Stephen it would
Oh, you're a cracker. More Madeira? A small cherry.
A sherry monocle. Hey, you've got the sherry monocle in.
Rot as I hate you. Anyway, I think it must be time to settle up. Last of all on this melancholy evening. We won't say last, we'll call you the designated loser. It's Phil with -15, ladies and gentlemen. In third place with -3, John Sessions. In second place with +2 milligrams, it's Jimmy Carr, ladies and gentlemen. What can this mean? It can only mean that tonight's runaway winner with 10 points is Alan Davis. Wow! I'm so proud of you. That is a fantastic result. And with that bombshell, it's time for me to leave this D for Drinks edition with a little advice from Rodney Dangerfield. Don't do it. He said, I drink too much. The last time I gave a urine sample, it had an olive in it. See you next week. Bye-bye.